Well, we're here at the Tribeca Film Festival. I sort of have a missed opportunity. I could have been filming this whole time, and I didn't think about it. But we'll be talking about what went on this week later on in the show. But I just wanted to kind of bring you. This is what a 9 o'clock press screening looks like. 5 minutes before the show starts. Hi, everybody. We're back. We're back. We're back in Little Rock. Actually, I'm doing this on Thursday morning, which is a little bit different than my usual routine. I usually do it on Wednesday morning. I did do it on Wednesday morning, except the video turned out to be not so good. And I'm actually happy to have a chance to do it over because I left out a lot of films when I was talking about what we'd seen at Tribeca. It's really kind of hard to explain, but you get in a mode, or at least Karen and I get in these modes where we see movies after movies after movies after movies. We go grab a snack, take it into the theater, watch another movie, and keep going. It's not always like that at a film festival. Often you go to parties. Often you hang out with the ilk, with film critics from all over the world, all over the country, and industry people and stuff like that. But Tribeca is just coming back. Really, I think most people who are attending this year, film industry and critics, are probably doing the virtual thing still. It's sort of there aren't many people in screenings, as you just saw, and that's not always typical. Now, early morning screenings, in early morning, 9 o'clock, that's when they start, are never really well attended because people are out late seeing movies, going to parties, doing whatever. So, you really don't get a whole lot of people at most 9 o'clock screenings. And a few more people did come in right after I shut the video down. There might have been seven, I don't think seven, I think maybe 5 or 6 people were at the Carroll and Johnny screening, press and industry screening on what was that? Must have been Tuesday morning. It's a very good film. It's about Johnny Williams, who is the most successful bank robber in U.S. history, and he was sentenced to something like 92 years in jail and got out in 2021 because of COVID. And he's trying to put his life back together, which includes reconnecting with his wife and accomplice, Carroll, who had served 20 years as his getaway driver. Whatever you think about bank robbers, and most of us would probably rather not, have much contact with bank robbers, it's a very human story, and there's a great scene in there with the FBI agent who tracked him down. And Johnny was a very professional, very good, as you might imagine, very good bank robber. He was very good at it. He had a really nice, MO, that he didn't hurt anybody except once accidentally. But he scared everybody really bad. And they believed that he was capable of doing really terrible things. And that's how he got them to give them the money so quickly. Okay. But he's having lunch with the FBI agent, and he's talking about how, I bet it was a drag for you when I got out. And the FBI agent goes, no, man, I really was rooting for you. I was really hoping, that you'd get out. Because it's one of those things. It's like he's an intelligent guy, and once you spend some time in his company, which the movie allows you to do, you start to, make all these human connections, and you start to realize that there's not that much difference between Johnny Williams and you. And that's one of the great things about movies. But anyway, we're back from Tribeca. It's still going on. We're still participating because we have the Tribeca at Home app, which you can buy. I mean, you can go online and download it for, I think, $150, $175, and you can watch a lot of the movies that are at Tribeca. There are a couple that I haven't been able to track down on there. But one I really want to see is It Ain't Over, which is the Yogi Berra documentary. Karen saw it, which is, we split these things up, and she went and saw it. She says it's wonderful. You need to see the Yogi Berra documentary. So I've sent the Yogi Berra documentary people, it ain't over, an email saying please send me a screener because we want to talk about that. We want to get to that film. But let me just give you our typical how we got to Tribeca's story. Okay, we get up at 3:30 on Sunday morning. We're at the airport by 5, on a plane by 6. We have a little trouble with a connection in D.C., but we still get to New York by 1:30 or so. And what we do, being cheap and saving the company money, we do not get a limo or a taxi or an Uber or a Lyft down to Soho, which is where we're going. Actually, Tribeca takes place all over the city. All the movies we saw this time, we saw in the East Village. If you're familiar with New York, we were on the Lower East Side watching movies while the headquarters was actually not in Tribeca either. It's on the outskirts of Tribeca. Karen went to Tribeca. I did not go to Tribeca one time during this trip. So, just to let you know. So we get down there, we get our credentials, we go up and we go up to the only time I went to the press center and to the lobby, and they had this really wonderful kind of setup where they were feeding you Dan noodles and stuff like that. Usually we go there and drink, have beer, wine, cocktails. We didn't have time this time. Headed straight out, went to see a movie. I can't remember the movie that we went to see. We went to a screening right then. I do have a list of most of the movies we went to see, or have seen so far. I don't know. Was it? Okay. I'll just go through this. There's a lot of stuff in here that I need to kind of address. Now, when you go to a film festival, one of the great things about going to a film festival is if you don't like the movie you're in, you can get up and walk out and go to another movie. That was one of the wonderful things about the Little Rock Film Festival. They had, screenings at the same time in the same venue where you could move over. You can't always do that. Sometimes they have them in these big special places. And the public screenings are generally, kind of one-off affairs. So that's a little different. But for us, I'm talking about for the working press, you could get up and leave, okay? We went to this movie. It was okay. We watched it. We went to a party. Now, this is... The only reason we went to this party is because it was thrown by Fashion Fair, which is a cosmetic line for black folks, for black women. And it has an Arkansas connection, and it was started by, Eunice Johnson, who was married to John Johnson of Ebony and Jet fame, who's famously from Arkansas. And we thought, since we'd been invited to the party, that we would go just because it had that Arkansas connection. And you never know. There's an Arkansas connection. You want to say hi to any Arkansans you see just to connect and try to say. We didn't expect anything to come of it. And the movie was called The Beauty of Blackness, which is an HBO film. It's HBO Max. It's running there exclusively. And what it is, to be absolutely frank, it's a infomercial type thing. It's a product. It's a brand story. It is talking all about the history of Fashion Fair cosmetics, which started in the 70s, was an outgrowth of the Fashion Fair tours that went through the South mainly, with black women, showing beauty products. And it was kind of a promotional tour for Jet Ebony. It's also kind of a fundraiser, a charity fundraiser, and it went all over the world. And a lot of people will remember this, especially, black women of a certain age will remember the Fashion Fair tours. So anyway, see the movie. The movie's fine. It is not anything outstanding. It's, like I said, it's an infomercial. It tells you all about the brand. Still, it's got some very nice visuals. It's shot well. Some of the interviews are very interesting. In fact, one of the interviews, which I'm going to be writing about, I don't want to steal my thunder because I'm going to write about this story. But Pat Cleveland, who was the first Fashion Fair model, tells a story in this film about Little Rock. And I talked to the directors afterwards, and I talked to a few other people, and I did some research, and I've got that story that's going to run, I hope, Tuesday in the on the Voices page. Do I write on the Voices page? I write in the editorial section. Let's put it that. I think it's on the op-ed page. It's not on the Voices page. It's on the op-ed page, which you don't need to know because nobody except us journos make that sort of distinction. But anyway, so out of a really unlikely thing, we really just thought we were going to go to this party. We're going to talk to some people, meet some people, have a glass of wine. Actually, I had 2 glasses of very good rosé wine. It was held in the Crosby Hotel, which is a hotel I'm not familiar with, but it's on Crosby Street in Soho, and it's gorgeous. It's really nice. Had one of the nicest screening rooms that I've seen outside of Los Angeles. In fact, it's one of the nicest screening rooms I've seen anywhere. Certainly better than most New York screening rooms in the basement, lower floor of this hotel. And then we had this party outside, and like I said, it was very nice. We were we were not dressed in the. It was a fashion party. I think Derek Jeter was there. It wasn't like thousands of people. It was like maybe 75. People were in this bar. It wasn't hard to get a drink. It wasn't hard to get food. Wagyu sliders. This is really great. This is what we go for because this is fun. This is the fun part of the festival. But we actually came away with what I think is a pretty nice story, and I think Karen may be writing about it too in a different way. But it was totally unexpected. So there you go. And like I said, it's not a movie that we're going to review. It's not a movie that we're going to talk about. It's not a movie. It's not even a movie. It's a thing that's on HBO Max that will tell you about this cosmetic line, its history, and its relaunch because I guess it went bankrupt. It was bought and it was resurrected. And it's part of Sephora now, or it's affiliated with Sephora. And Sephora was the one throwing the party for it. And one of the producers was a big deal at Sephora. And so it's not like a work of art, but it is a work. I mean, the directors should be proud of it. It's really well done, and it's got some nice stuff. And like I said, we got a story out of it, so that's great. So then we go back to the hotel, and we fall asleep. And the hotel is wonderful because I have to say this, a plug. We stay for New York, pretty modest hotels. I mean, I've stayed in the Upper East Side. I've stayed in the Waldorf Astoria. I've stayed in all these nice hotels. But when we're paying for it ourselves, or the Democrat Gazette is paying for it, and there's not some sort of event attached that we need to stay in the hotel, we stay modestly. We stayed in a place called the Gatsby. The room was smaller than this studio by, a good measure, but it had great air conditioning. Television didn't work. That was okay. We didn't care. We had an iPad. We were watching Tribeca movies. Had a good bathroom, and it was nice and cold in there, and I really like that. Karen doesn't like it cold. I like it cold, but, so. And I really recommend the Gatsby if you're the sort of person who just uses a hotel room as some place to sleep and leave your stuff. Shelley, who was there, was wonderful. She worked 18-hour shifts, I think. Every time we went up, we saw her, and anyway. So, but we get to the hotel, we go to bed. We get up in the morning, head down, and spend the whole day at the movies. I do not have a complete list of the movies that we saw. I'm counting them up. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 or 11 movies for me. Karen saw a couple more. And of these movies, I would say 3 or 4 of them are really good. And that's a good percentage for any film festival, and especially for Tribeca, which is often has it leans to more to the experimental and more to indie films, and you don't have a lot of big budget Hollywood type movies at Tribeca, which that's not the purpose of the festival. In fact, the festival is really, it started out as like an economic development project for Tribeca, which is where the World Trade Center was and is again. and it started in 2002 by Robert De Niro and Jane Rosenthal to revitalize the neighborhood after the World Trade Center attacks. And we started going in 2003 on the direct invitation, sort of imperative of Jane Rosenthal, who told me we better go. And so we did, and they have treated us wonderfully. We've been going every year. We've had a couple years we missed. We missed we went in 2019, and then they canceled in 2020, and we didn't go last year because they moved it to the fall, and it was all outdoors, and it was still kind of COVID plagued. And we just didn't feel comfortable going. We did go this year, and I think a lot of people are still staying away because of that. But they're trying to have it more back indoors and more back to normal. And like I said, as you could see from the little clip of the theater, there are not that many critics here. I mean, usually I'll see 50 or 60 people I know of. I really only saw one other critic that I know. Piers Marchant, who's also covering the festival for us, is doing it all virtually. Most of our coverage is virtual because, like I said, we were only there for Sunday, Monday, and half of Tuesday, in which I saw 12 films. That's what it was. My number is 12. Karen's a little bit beyond that. One of the films I saw, which Piers writes about, is The Integrity of Joseph Chambers. And that is one of the best films of the year. That is the same team. Robert McCovian, I think is how you say his name. I apologize. I've never heard it spoken. What's his name? From Rectify. Clayne Crawford, who's my man. They teamed up for a film in 2019 called The Killing of Two Lovers, and it's just tremendous. This is the same sort of almost micro-budget movie, and it's got the same sort of effect. It's just really beautifully shot. The sound design's wonderful, but the story really gets into you. It really hooks into you. It's about an insurance guy who decides to go hunting. Just to do it, just because he wants to be. He's worried about what's going to happen when it all falls apart, how he's going to protect his family, how he's going to feed his family. He thinks he needs to go hunting, and he does it on kind of a whim. And what happens is another example of what I call plausible horror. It's just fantastic, and I really like it a lot. Another movie I really like a lot, Piers didn't like it so much, is Rounding, about a doctor who I don't understand medical stuff, but he's like an intern. Okay, he's a doctor, but he's not a doctor. I mean, he's still learning, and he's at the big hospital in Chicago, and he has a stressful situation. He asked to be transferred to a rural hospital, and he imagines it'll be a less stressful situation. Now, I don't want to give too much away. It turns into a really tense kind of thriller thing. I'm going to drop the pen. It's directed by Alex Thompson. Alex Thompson, if you're a really devoted follower of these pages, you will remember he directed a little movie called St. Francis, which starred Kate O'Sullivan, who is his girlfriend, who's from North Little Rock. She's also in this film. She was the driving engine of St. Francis. She just has a supporting role in this. But it's a wonderful, tense, kind of interesting movie that, like I said, I liked a lot. I also end up liking, I didn't think I would like this, because you look at who's doing it and you see the cast and you go, okay, maybe it's going to be quirky, independent thing. This film called Vengeance by B.J. Novak, I think it's his first movie he's directed. I think he's written before. I know he's a writer, but he plays a podcaster from New York, basically a radio guy, like a national public radio guy. It really is what it was. But he's working on a podcast called Dead White Girls, investigates murders around the country. And a girl he hooks up with is murdered in Texas. And the family contacts him because they believe, for reasons that will become clear later, that he's her boyfriend, that he's, close to her, even though he only had this sort of superficial. So he goes down to Texas to investigate this murder, which he doesn't really think is a murder. He thinks it's an overdose, and finds out about this girl, finds out about her family, finds out about these people she was involved with, including a record producer played by Ashton Kutcher and a drug dealer, and J. Cameron Smith's in it as the Texas mother. And it's really funny. It's dark. It's funny. Issa Rae is also in. She plays his producer back in, I think in Los Angeles, actually, is where she's at. But she might be in New York. I can't really remember. But anyway, it's good. It's good. It has a surprising sort of ending to it. It really has some astute things to say about what people think of as flyover country, Texas in particular. And having lived for a while in Texas, I can tell you Texas is particular. I really ended up enjoying that. I just listed them in. I really like Carroll and Johnny, the movie I talked about the bank robbers getting back together. I really like this documentary. I think it's probably a documentary for limited purposes for some of you, for some of you bookie people. Turn every page, The Adventures of Robert Carroll and Robert Gottlieb. If you know who Robert Carroll and Robert Gottlieb are, I think you want to see this. Carroll is famously the LBJ biographer. Gottlieb is famously the Knopf editor, who was the editor of the New Yorker for a while. He's been working with Carroll for 50 years. They're both kind of racing against time to see that they can get this LBJ final volume of what's turned out to be a 5-volume LBJ biography out. If that sounds bad to you, you probably don't need to see it, but if it's great if you're into that stuff. If you're into writing and the process and editing and stuff like that. There's a nice dumb film. I really kind of like it. I call it a dumb film. Wes Schlagenhoff is dying. We watched that in our hotel room after a few glasses of wine. That may have helped it, but it's kind of a stoner comedy about a guy who gets COVID, is dying, and his friends who used to make commercials with him in L.A. go back to visit him in South Dakota. It's a road movie. It has a lot to say about the down market part of filmmaking and the industry, the lower depths of the industry in Los Angeles. I enjoyed it very much. A couple of films just didn't work with me. Breaking the Ice, which is an amazing Austrian film about girls hockey, so long as it's about women's hockey. And the actors are actually playing hockey, as far as I can tell, and they're very good. We have been watching the Hulu show Shoresy, and it reminded us of that a little bit. So, yeah, but it kind of loses me when it gets into the romantic stuff, and there's a character in there I just can't abide, the brother character. But it's, it's a sports, drama, romance. It's another one, but I enjoyed some of it. Sort of like My Love Affair with Marriage is another one. It's the animation's really, it's an animated film, so the animation is really worth seeing. It's a Latvian film, and it's also kind of interesting. There are some things I don't like about it. I don't have time to go into full review because I see I'm almost at the 25-minute mark here, and we really want to cut this off before 30 minutes. What else? Hidden Letters, I didn't see, but that's... I actually saw a little bit last night once I got home from Little Rock. I watched a little bit of it. It's Karen saw it. It's about this amazing secret language that Chinese women had for centuries to communicate with each other, and men couldn't read it. It was their secret language, and it's being, revived and celebrated in China now, though not in totally the way it should be. Okay. I didn't like Roving Woman, but it was a good try, and maybe I didn't finish it. Maybe I'll go back and see that. That's another one that you may hear something about. It's it's executive produced by Wim Wenders, and it's about literally a woman who is thrown out of her boyfriend's house in just her beautiful evening gown with no credit cards, no money or anything like that. And then I guess there's some reason that she can't call the police, or but she steals John Hawkes' car and drives around the desert. It's interesting in parts, but it goes on too long, and it really didn't connect with that. There's a couple others. We'll be writing, talking about them, but that's basically our Tribeca trip. We saw a bunch of movies. Still haven't processed it all, and looks like I got this under 30 minutes, so we'll see you, Leslie.